Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the photo of the week on the Daily Critique. This week's photo of the week was submitted by Moritz, who is an intermediate photographer from Germany. Moritz says the image was shot in a local park, and he said the main idea was to capture the two leafless trees on the top of the hill with the path leading up to the place of desolation. And he says the solitary person walking up to the top is the counterpoint for this image, bringing in more depth. And he says that he used the green toning in the image to emphasize a surreal feeling of solitude. He said the image is entitled Solitary Men, inspired by the song from Johnny Cash. And Moritz shot this with a Canon EOS 400D 17-40 zoom and at ISO 400. Shot this at f4 at 1/1500th of a second. And one of the things that I like about this image so much is just, in addition to the simplicity of the image, that I think it's a powerful storytelling image, and I also think it's the kind of image where people can make up a lot of stories about the image. The story in the image is simple, and the information that we're seeing is simple, but because the person is in silhouette, and because of the treatment, and because of how graphic the image is, really gets your attention, has a big impact, and then you get to fill in a lot of gaps here. And I think that's really powerful. There's a really beautiful sense of rhythm in the main subjects. I really love the way just the idea of the two trees and sort of joining at the top, but then having these two trunks to the trees plays off of just the idea of the person in terms of the graphic of that shape. And then there's some really nice rhythms just within the context of the trees themselves, just this sort of shape. It's making the same shape as the legs, appearing over and over and over again. Works really well in terms of the way my eye moves in a graphic image like this. We've talked a lot about these kinds of things lately, but we like to move from left to right and from high to low. And having this movement sloping in this direction, very powerful. It's sort of how the viewer wants to go, and then having the pushback with the main character in the story, and having really sort of ultimately the main idea in the bottom right. That's where we want to end up, and so much of the time having a solitary person in an environment dominant shot like this can work really well sort of on this PowerPoint in a rectangularly framed image. I love what the green toning is doing for the image. It does sort of push it in the direction of the surreal, and I think just this the setting to begin with really lends itself to that. It does. It has an apocalyptic feel to it because it does seem like a landscape with sort of almost nothing left in it. And I also really like the idea of the path here, kind of coming from nowhere and going into nowhere, and then the person sort of walking, in a direction or whatever where we can't really see where the path is over here. You just get the sense of moving on this line. Really enjoy that. Several other things that I'll say that I think is really interesting in terms of creativity connected to this image. The idea that Moritz basically had a concept for this shot, and he went out and made it happen. There's also been some Photoshop work that has been done on the figure to sort of finish the shot, and I believe part of that had to do with actually on the gesture here, actually sort of creating this foot and this leg. And I really like that just in terms of making the image pay off. And love the idea of using a song title to title this image. I just love the idea of working with concepts like that. Things that can allow you to say yes to your process, things that can allow you to become more conceptual instead of going out and shooting and waiting for things to happen. Making a shot up in your mind, and then sort of finding the different elements to make that happen, up to and including work in the digital darkroom. A really beautiful image from just a graphic simplicity standpoint and a rhythm standpoint, and I think a really powerful image in terms of its ability to evoke a story at a psychological level for the viewer want to say a big thank you to Moritz for sharing this image with us on the Mindful Eyes Photo of the Week on the Daily Critique.